Ladies and gentlemen, what we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
Last week we did our best 11 of the season so far. Now is going to be our worst 11 of the season. Most overrated, underperformed, all that jazz.
Right, so what we're going to do, so this is not the best 11. Now, let me explain what this means. This doesn't mean the worst player that plays every position, because we're not doing that. What we're doing is basically players that had either some expectation, came into on a big transfer, maybe, that got paid a lot to come, that have just underperformed the expectation that we had for them or that, most people had for them. So, if you say, oh, no, there's a worse left mid that plays for Sheffield, I'm sure there is. But that's not the point of this. This is people that have underperformed expectation because they had a big expectation going into it.
Yep. All right, let's kick it off. Out of the back, we're going to start with the goalkeeper, Jordan Pickford.
I think that's pretty...
Yeah, a player
pretty easy
who went from potentially being England's number one.
I think he still is.
Still, it might be England's number one.
I don't think he's going to keep that job for too long.
No, he's actually been playing a little bit better the last couple of games, but the beginnings of his season was just
the shakiest.
Yeah, coming off really of last season, he
got benched for a week.
He looked great. And then like I said, the start of the season, he started kind of shaky. There's a lot of expectations on him to easily take over that England number one spot.
He already had it.
But to hold it,
solidify it.
Yeah,
gotcha.
And this year just hasn't been great for him. That's why we have him as the keeper for this 11.
Yeah, I'll do. So I'll do Egan as a center back here. I mean, we talked about Sheffield's team how they rely on a strong defense. So I think the center back has to be Egan. We've seen the Vardy's goal last week where he got beat on a foot race. Probably should have taken the foul. They've been beaten in the air by teams that are aerial threats. They're just not defending as a unit. And, he's the center of their defense, so we're kind of just giving a little bit of a blame on him there.
And because they played so good last year. I think
right, and he had a great season last year. Yeah. He was one of their standout players. So he just took a step back, I think, this year.
Do you want to take the other center back?
You got it.
Okay, I wanted to do the outside, but all right.
You can do it too.
Yeah.
All right, so we have Willy Boley from Wolves as the other center back. He hasn't had a terrible season, but I think he was one of those center backs that had high expectations. Last year he was, I would say, one of the best, most consistent in the backs. Wolves, they haven't had the same start to the season as they had last year. They're still a really good team, but they've let up more goals, I think. Boley also, just hasn't been that dominating presence that I feel like he was last year. So, I don't know. Not having a terrible season, just not living up to the expectations that we had thought or he lived up to last year.
You want to keep it going? Go right into
who you want to go into.
Right into your boy.
Yeah, right back, Hector Bellerin. He was a player that the first couple of games, I think I actually said on the pod, I think he's actually been playing better. I think he's actually having a decent start to the season. He's getting up, but he just doesn't know what he's doing on defense anymore. He doesn't. In the Spurs game, he got caught out of position, and partially it was his fault for, the first goal against his son. And he just, he does occasionally put in good balls going forward, but a lot of the times they're just not to anyone, and they just not placing his balls in great spots. But I just think he's just, I know it was poorly worded.
No, I was thinking something totally different.
But yeah, for me it's just not a great start to the season, and he's been getting, I think he has 5 yellow cards already, so he's out now. So
and he's out now. So here's one we never really decided on, which is why I just pulled up. I'm just pulling up lineups at this point.
Yeah.
We don't have a left back. We haven't really chosen one.
We could take the other center back and just say screw it.
Well, we could. So, all right.
I wouldn't say
he has played in this position this season.
I wouldn't say him because he started the hurt.
All right, so it's a stretch here, but we'll say it because he did play left back.
Hey, it's our show, all right?
All right.
Do what we want.
Since he did play left back a few times this year, Ake from City. Now, he might not have come in people thought, he was an overreach on the signing, but he was still a 40-something million signing. So there's expectation there regardless of where you come from. And, at this point, he's third in line as a left back and our fourth choice at center back. You spent that much money on someone that's basically, unless half the team gets hurt, isn't going to see the field in the competitive game. So Yeah, even though it's a stretch, we're going to put him at left back, so Ake's our left back.
All right, going in on the midfield, and this is a player that I'm about to name that kind of kept this up. I wouldn't even say just this season alone. Like, it's been happening for a while. For Manchester United, Paul Pogba, this has been going on for a while where he kind of hit this slump, and as soon as he kind of hit the slump, it was, bad attitude from him, from his agent, saying that this has been the worst spell of his career. He got benched a little bit. He did have some injuries here and there, but nothing that should have kept him out as long as it has. He just wasn't playing because he wasn't good enough. Now with everything going on, with his agent saying he's definitely leaving, he wants to get out of here. It's not good for him. It's not good for his confidence. I don't agree with him starting this past week, especially after all. I know it's not his fault, but as a manager, Ole should have probably just said, all right, you know what? It's just not helping. You paid millions upon millions for this guy. He's supposed to be one of the best center mids in the world. And if you're one of the best center mids in the world, or at least supposed to be, I don't care what team you're playing for. You should show up. You should put up numbers and results. So that's why, Paul Pogba is one of our center mids for this team. What's up?
I'll go to the other center mid.
Oh, yeah, use that one.
So the other center
you
mid,
boys.
Well, yeah, the other midfielder, not center mid, sorry. The other midfielder is Bernardo Silva. I mean, he's a player that, I don't know.
World class at one point. Like, you would say he's world class, right? Like, his touch and
I'd
skill.
say he is.
Arguably last year was one of City's best players. He's a hustle guy that has great touch. He can change a game. He will hustle to the final minute, but
he's not getting the time.
He's not getting the time, and when he has gotten the time, he hasn't really been effective.
Has he been hurt all or no?
Not really. He just hasn't played. The last game he played was the Tottenham game and got subbed out. I mean, he hasn't made a difference. And when a team like Man City, who has so much depth, if you don't go in and make a difference, that's it. You're not seeing the field anymore. And Pep's not the one that's shy about pulling someone. I mean, we've seen that.
No.
So, I mean, I had him pegged for a big year, and he's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to argue he's had any effect on the team this year at all.
Trust me, I know he's on my fantasy team, or he was on my fantasy team. The hardest thing was dropping him because, I got him pretty high too. I'm not to talk too much about fantasy, but I was excited, because I thought he was a really great player. No, I knew he was a really great player.
Yeah.
But he just hasn't been this year.
Yeah.
Dan's saying not talking about fantasy. If you guys want to hear our fantasy thoughts, let us know. I feel like that'd be fun. I feel like that would be. I don't know.
Hey, if you want to hear, we could talk about it.
Dan, you want to finish out that center there?
Yeah, so more of I don't really know his actual true position. Sometimes he plays out wide. Sometimes he plays like a false nine kind of.
sake.
We're gonna say to round out the midfield, Havertz from Chelsea. And while he hasn't had a terrible start to the season, there was obviously a lot of hype around him coming in. Right, he was Chelsea's biggest signing, besides probably even bigger than Werner, but it was close.
They were both up there as pegged as two of the biggest signings.
Both up there, and he was a player that performed highly in the Bundesliga. He insane goal and assist record over there. Plays good with the national team, but he just looks like he hasn't really found his rhythm yet.
Mm-hmm.
He also just kind of seems like he goes missing at times in games. Very similar to an Ozil type player.
Yeah.
He did score a hat trick in one of their non-league games, one of the cup games. So he can score and he can perform, but he just hasn't brought it so far.
In the league this year, he hasn't been.
Yeah.
I mean, I think anyone would agree that Ziyech and Havertz have both done. Ziyech has outperformed Havertz, and I think Ziyech had less expectation coming into it.
Yeah.
So,
and Werner too.
Yeah. So yeah. Again, this isn't worst players.
Yeah.
It's not meeting expectations is the point of this list.
All right, I'll take one of the wingers here. Another United player, Martial. He's played, striker. He's played in the wing this year. He had an injury maybe a few games ago, but the way he finished last season when he came back from Project Restart, he was pretty much scoring at will. He got his first Premier League hat trick. He was playing great. I thought he came back to get the ball. He wasn't holding the ball too long. It was on his foot, off his foot, and he was shooting. He was taking chances. This year, since the start of this season, he's getting the ball. He's trying to do too much. And, he's trying to take players on when he shouldn't. He's trying to take on 2-3 players at a time, holding the ball way too long. And what really bothers me is you don't see. Yes, he's getting lost in games, but you don't see the hustle you saw at the end of last season. You don't see him working back to get the ball at his feet. You don't see him making those extra runs in behind. When he turns over the ball, he stops. Right? He kind of reminds me of Pogba in a way where you turn over the ball, he just kind of throws his hands like, ah, crap, and just doesn't even try to get back. Yeah, you're playing up front, but you got to put in the effort. I personally had very high hopes with the way he finished last season. I thought he was going to come in. I thought he was going to easily be our leading scorer. Even with Bruno, I thought he was going to help us out so much this year. He hasn't really performed, and that's why we kind of picked him for this list.
I'll take the next one so Dan can finish off.
Dan can finish it up.
So our next choice for underperforming player is St. Maximin. And I don't think we had Newcastle pegged to be high, but we had him to have a big future. I mean, he was a great player. He has shown great skill. He's a force going forward. He creates chances. He takes players on. And he's got 1 goal in 8 appearances this year. And Newcastle's done pretty good without him being even a factor in their games. I mean, he was about to get... I think he has an injury now, but he was falling out of favor anyway. He just hasn't been the player that we've seen he could be in those late games last year after the break and everything. It's unfortunate because I think a lot of Newcastle fans were excited about him, but he just hasn't been at his best. I mean, everyone falls out of form eventually, but I think he had a lot of expectation coming into it.
Yeah, we spoke highly about him in the beginning of the season too. Like even in his first game, I don't know if he got an assist, but he was creating some like really good chances on the wing, like sending nice balls in and clear cut chances, but just kind of tapered off.
Yeah, one of the things we saw after they restarted last season was he's fast. He's a very, very quick player.
Yeah.
All he really needs to do is take 1-2 touches, take it down the line, either cut in, take a shot himself, or play the ball in the box. And that's not what he's been doing. He hasn't been just trying to beat players down the line. He hasn't been that's his game. He's trying to do too much. He's trying to cut in. He's trying to do different things. He's not sticking to what he's good at.
I mean, there was times when he was at where he does dribble too much. He does like to take players on, but I think the problem is like when you're doing that and you don't have the stats to back it up, I think it makes it more difficult.
Yeah. Dan, finish off. Who's our striker?
Probably one of the most obvious choices on this list. Aubameyang.
Yep.
It's Aubameyang.
It's hard to argue.
Can't argue it.
I don't think he's ever had a drought like this in his whole entire career. And 2 goals in 12 games this season. 1 from open play. The other is a penalty. You can just tell watching him, he's just not himself. And I don't know if that's because he's playing some games he's up top leading the line. Sometimes he's out wide and he just can't get a groove. Maybe it's because he doesn't have anyone feeding him. Also sitting on the bench not even on the bench, sitting at home on his ass, making $350,000 a week or pounds a week, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I mean, Aubameyang
he just looks out of it.
He's out of sorts. Even in front of goal, he's just not himself. Even he's always been I think one of the best finishers in the world.
You saw it against Burnley.
Yeah.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the drought's over, so that's a good news. But yeah, I mean, it's just not great with him at the moment.
And I mean, he was what? Did he second Golden Boot, tied for Golden Boot last year?
Yeah, he was up there.
I think he might have been second last year, but tied the year before. I don't know. I can't remember.
But I mean, 2 solid years back to back. And I mean, this year, unless he comes out of this drought with the biggest goal scoring streak of his life, is not going to even finish probably top 10 maybe this year. So
I don't know.
Anyway,
but that's our not the best 11 due to underperforming expectation.
Very long title.